Right. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Kate Windsor and I am a member of Northeast Metro Climate Action. We have several other members in the room as well. We are a local group of friends and neighbors and community members who believe in a healthier, cleaner, and sustainable future. And our mission is to broaden awareness about the climate crisis with to our neighbors and our community and elected officials so that we can preserve a livable earth for ourselves and the next generations. So we are actively involved in local and state elections to identify and help support climate champions. So please take a look at our Facebook page to see who we've endorsed and consider voting for those particular candidates. For more information about our group, we call ourselves NEMCA. You can visit our website, which is northeastmetroclimateaction.org, or we also have a Facebook page. So I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on traditional homelands of the Anishinaabe people who continue to live in this area and exercise treaty rights on this land and surrounding waters. So we humbly work to honor this living history. So before we begin tonight's presentation, I'd like you to mark your calendars for our April presentation, which is going to be on Wednesday, April 24th at 6:30 right here and on Zoom at the White Bear Lake Library. And we are featuring Chris Knopf, who is with the Friends of the Boundary Waters Wilderness, and he'll speak to us on the Prove It First legislation and why it's so important. So we have several co-hosts this evening. We have Resilient Roseville, Sustainable Stillwater MN, Indivisible North Metro Environment Team, St. Croix Valley Indivisible, and Vote Climate. So those of you who are on Zoom, please mute your microphones during the presentation, and you can put any questions that you might have in the chat, or you can possibly raise your hand and ask to be unmuted to ask your question in person. So tonight's speaker is Kyle Poston. He is a residential solar project developer for Cedar Creek Energy, which was established in 2007. And Kyle has 20 years of residential Energy Star and solar consulting experience. And he'll be speaking about solar energy options for homeowners. So welcome, Kyle.
Thank you very much. I want to welcome everyone to the group. I'm flattered to be a part of, to participate here tonight with everyone. With my understanding that the organization is now a little over 5 years old, and this is their first solar presentation. And I'm flattered to be that first one to help us ease into solar. And I think what's really important to understand is the title, Minnesota Solar. It's saving green by going green. And I want to emphasize the Minnesota part, is that a lot of the knowledge we obtain is through our reading. And nowadays we're on YouTube and we're looking at all these articles about solar, and they're all very fantastic. But what we need to recognize is that most of these articles and most of these videos are not implementing what is actually happening in Minnesota regarding our regulations and our production values and how our utilities work with us. So what I want to do is help take the knowledge that you have and expand upon it and be more specific to what Minnesota has to offer you as a resident. Sound like a plan? Wonderful, good. So as we take a look here, we're not going to be here till midnight. It was a joke earlier, but I want us to understand what we're going to cover tonight. We're going to cover what solar exactly is, how it works. We're going to talk about utility companies as they dictate how solar is going to work for your house. We're going to address the law of net metering, what your incentives are, why solar is expanding so quickly, given the current status of the political tax incentives. We'll address the types of arrays being on top of your roof or in a field. Then we'll talk about the newest technology regarding battery backup. We'll talk about EV off-peak charging. And then at the very end, we'll figure out how we can help each other make this world a little bit better. So with the start is, let's look at we have two options as homeowners, is you can own your own array on your house or on your property where you'd benefit from that project. Or you can join a community solar garden that's available through Connexus and is available through Excel. But over time, as homeowners have learned, that financially it is in your best interest to invest in your own solar. The community solar garden in turn really benefits the provider versus the homeowner. And that's what we're going to kind of focus on, is taking that power and generating yourself so you benefit from it, not others, with that financial investment. So the bigger part with this group is, let's address environmental benefits. Is by using solar on your home and your property, we're obviously going to reduce the dependence on coal and oil. We're going to help fight climate change by lowering global carbon emissions. We're going to pass on the legacy of green energy.
Okay, your audio stinks.
Out with
Wants to get ahead.
you do this. In the 17 years that Cedar Creek has been providing solar solutions, Minnesota, is when you do this, your neighbors do this, coworkers do this. And we see that specifically with all the commercial work that our companies provided over these years. As an employee of a homeowner that has put solar on their building, it just gravitates to wanting to do the same. And then the big thing is the kids see you taking this. And that's for a lot of my clients that are older as I am, is that we start making decisions that we want to help our kids live a better life, but also show them what we can do to make a difference. And then obviously when you can generate your own energy, we're not using that coal, we're reducing that air pollution. With any solar provider, when you look at solar with other company you choose, yeah. Okay, so yeah, bear with me here. So I'm gonna go in. Did anybody bring is there a 4-year-old out there that could help us? A grandchild, a kid. Yeah, I think it's this right here. No, that's not what I want. Okay. Scroll to the bottom where I was at. So we're here. Not in Teams. It's not there. So you want me in the browser, or where would you like? Okay.
Do you know how?
Yes.
So share screen, right, Kyle? Can
Right
you-
here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now you have to find.
So this one here, and then share.
now you
Yeah.
have to find, You gotta go back. You gotta stop share for a minute. Now go back to share. All right, so
My
which one
screen.
of these, no,
It's not
which
here.
one of these is your slideshow? What you're
Um,
trying to show everybody?
those are only showing I think if I hit screen, okay, and then I'm gonna go to this, and then I go to here.
There you go.
Okay. Okay, great.
And then you have to start your slideshow.
So my name's Kyle. I'm with Cedar Creek Energy. And then we want to get rid of, hold on. Better, Steven? Okay. When you work with the solar provider, and we always encourage you get multiple bids. The more you understand about solar, the better that decision's going to be. And working with any reputable solar provider in Minnesota, they should be able to show you what the benefits are of your array that it'll have on the environment, what the impact will be. That would be basically how many trees you would need to plant to be equal to the amount of reduction of CO2 emissions, to how many barrels of oil you would burn, your energy would need, your house would need to burn oil to offset. And then the equivalent of trees is how many acres of forest that you would need to plant to be equivalent to reduction of CO2. So those that are motivated by solar because of the environmental impact, you'll be able to have this information to make that buying decision. And that's where solar is nowadays, is that when we started this company 17 years ago, it was just a couple farm kids that wanted to build a business based on the environment that was generational. It made no financial sense in 2007 to do solar. The only ones that did solar was those that wanted to make a difference regardless of the price. But nowadays, with all the incentives that are available through your local utilities and the federal government, now we have accountants and financial advisors doing solar because it's penciling out. So if you can save some money and help the planet, it seems to be a win-win for everyone. It's just a matter of understanding that not all homes are meant for solar. So I want to go into what solar panels are. What solar panels are, there's dozens of manufacturers out there. They're all top tier panels. What a panel is going to do, it's made of silica, glass, and aluminum. These panels are going to last easily 50 years. They're warranted 25, 30 years. What these warranties are telling you is that these panels are going to produce a certain amount of energy at year 30 or year 25. What we're seeing with the technology today is that these panels will produce anywhere from 80 to 90, 85 to 92% of the energy they produced year 1 at year 30. So these are investments that are going to last decades. So what a panel is going to do is absorb that solar energy, and it's going to produce what's called direct current. Direct current is not good for our homes. We need to convert that energy. And that's done by what's called an inverter or a microinverter. Depending on your specific home, that provider is going to design an array that's going to maximize your roof's potential by using a solar panel with an inverter or a microinverter. What those inverters will do is convert that direct current into usable alternating current, AC. And that's what the energy your home is going to use. And whatever your home does not use energy-wise will go back to the grid where your neighbor will use that energy, okay? So when we design for solar, a lot of my homeowners are concerned that their house isn't south-facing. You don't need a south-facing house. A south-facing is excellent, but so is an east and west. And when you have 30 panels on a roof, on south-facing, you might need 31 or 32 panels on an east and west-facing to be equivalent. There's not that much of a difference. So that's something that I hear quite often, that I want you to understand. Do not worry about an east or west face. Now with today's technology, shading, back in the old days, would have significant impact on your roof's potential. With the implementation of this new technology using microinverters, we don't have to worry about that as much, okay? And then the last part is your roof size and your home usage and your personal goals is what's going to determine if you're going to want to move forward or not. A lot of our goals are based off of specifically what does your roof have to offer. So with solar, what it comes down to is your home and your utility company. And the group I'm understanding that I'm talking to today is going to be either an Excel territory or Connexus. And it's the rules that they have set up that will determine your rate on return and how viable solar is going to be for you. And I want to let you know both Excel and Connexus, of the 230 utility companies in Minnesota, are some of the most favorable for solar. So kudos to you living in a neighborhood that has the opportunity. So what we talk about with solar is the production of this electricity from DC to AC and how that works. So it goes from your panel to your inverter or microinverter. That energy then is either used by the home or it's sent back to the grid. And this is where utility will install a new meter that will keep track of not only the energy you're using, but the energy that you're producing. And this is kept track with your monthly bill. So here in Minnesota, Going back to being catered to Minnesota, this presentation is this first graph is showing a home's usage, which is in gray, compared to what the system will produce, which is in green. And we'll call this a bell curve. And you'll notice in January, February, November, and December, that green is not very tall. We had this discussion earlier, is that this is a direct correlation to the amount of sunlight available here in Minnesota. And as the winter builds on, our days get shorter. With shorter days, we don't have as much production. And as a homeowner that owns solar, the sooner you can recognize that the snow in your panels does not make that much of a difference, you don't worry about it. Cleaning snow off your panels is a risk to your health. There's no benefit of removing snow because you'll see in your production that you'll save yourself 13 cents that day by spending the 2 hours on your roof to do it. There's simply no energy in the wintertime. Very little energy to worry about. The reality is 85% of our energy production is from the months of April to September. That's when we thrive with solar. When you compare that to national production, Minneapolis, Minnesota has the same solar production as Miami, Florida. Think about Miami, the beach, all that sun. What makes Minnesota so viable for solar is our cooler climate and our incredibly long days. That conversion rate of DC to AC thrives on an 85-degree day versus a 100-degree day. And solar does not produce nearly or convert nearly amount of energy in a humid climate. So we can get all of our energy in these 7 or 8 months based off of your roof size to offset your bill. Okay. What makes this viable is financially is these incentives. We'll get into the tax credits in a moment, but the big one is why the accountants and financial advisor investing in solar is what's called the law of net metering. Minnesota imposed this law back in 1983. It's one of the first states in the in the 50 states that imposed this law. And what this law states basically is that anytime you produce more energy than what your home uses, that energy goes back to the grid, and that utility company is responsible for paying you average retail rate. So all summer long, we saw we were producing more than what we're using. You'll have a bill, but you won't owe any money. You're getting compensated at average retail rate. So for my Excel clients, what they do, Excel takes your winter rate and your summer rate. They blend that together. And anytime you produce more energy than what you use, you're going to get paid 14.251 cents for every single kilowatt. If you're in Connexus, they're going to compensate you at 12.1 cents. And how that looks, now this is a graph of your bill. So in the winter, yes, we'll produce some energy. We'll reduce your bill a little bit. So the gray is your current bills. You're without solar. When you invest in solar, your the green bars are going to show you what your new bills are going to look like. So for this particular home, a majority of the year, they're producing more energy than what they're using. They're getting paid for that overproduction at the end of the month. You'll see a bill where you don't owe any money. You'll be given an option in Excel territory where you can cash out each month for that overproduction, or you can roll that overproduction over as credits to the next or to the following months. So at the end of the year, as we're not producing as much as you're using, you'll go back to having a bill again where you'll owe some money, but in all reality, you'll have credits to utilize from the summer production. So then at the end of the year, it's my role, or whichever company you choose to work with, is to show you at the end of the year, are you offsetting 30% of your usage, 100% of your usage, or 200% of your usage? And that'll again will be based off of how much energy your home is using compared to how much viable space is on your roof. That's the law of net metering. Along with net metering, every project will receive a 30% federal tax credit. To be very clear, this is not a rebate. This is not an automatic check. It's a credit against your tax liability. In essence, that means is if you've had $15,000 withheld from your paychecks, you have $15,000 tax credit, you'll get that $15,000 back. So if you have a $15,000 tax credit, but you only had $10,000 of liability, you'll get to $10,000 back when you do your taxes. The remaining $5,000 is non-refundable. You will not get a check for that. The remaining $5,000 will roll over to the next tax season for you to take advantage of it at that point. It will continue to roll over as long as the tax credit is still available. And currently, where we stand is that this credit is available through 2035. The full 30% is good to 2032, and then they start staggering or reducing that incentive as it comes to end of term. So that's your tax credit. The second, another advantage is for my homeowners in Excel. They provide an additional rebate. That rebate will pay you 3 cents for every single kilowatt your system produces. So with your solar provider, you will learn what your system will produce on an annual basis. So if your home is estimated to produce 10,000 kilowatts, that means Excel will pay you 3 cents for every kilowatt is equivalent to $300. They will continue to pay that for 10 years. The caveat on that is you cannot size your array to produce more than 120% of your current usage. So if you've been in a home and you have your usage and you're going to be in the home for a while where you do not anticipate your usage to go higher with an addition of a pool, a swim spa, an electric vehicle, then it's a good idea for you to target the solar rewards rebate and max that out at 120% usage. Understanding the rule of thumb for solar is the larger you go, the panels are getting less expensive, and it's accelerating your payback and making it a larger payback. The larger you go. If you feel that your usage is going to go up in the future, it is in your best financial interest to skip the solar rewards program and go beyond if there's enough room for more panels. And that's where you working with a reputable company like Cedar Creek can help you identify what is your goals and how is that best met. Currently right now, your best financing options is going to be paying cash, is using a home equity line of credit, using a local bank that you have a relationship with, a credit union, but the by far number one popular financing option right now is it's federally funded through Minnesota Housing. It's called Minnesota Center of Energy and Environment. And this is one of the true loans that is designed to help the common homeowner get into solar at an affordable rate. Historically, when we started this years ago, return on investment was 30 plus years. Within the last 10 years, common ROIs has been around 20 years. But right now, within the last 6 months, we are seeing return on investment anywhere from 7 to 14 years, which is phenomenal. Knowing that these systems will produce energy for the next 4 decades. And then the big part in the recent legislation here in Minnesota is a couple items. One is HOAs. HOAs for a long time had the ability to ixnay your idea of putting solar and generating your own power on your roof. As of this last July, the law has changed and caught up to the national trend that HOAs no longer have the ability to prevent you from generating your own energy. And the other part is that we've used a good amount of tax money to help our local utility companies make solar an easier process for the homeowner and for the solar provider that's going to help you with the interconnection. So we're seeing a trend in legislation that's embracing solar to make it more financially feasible and easier and more accessible in a timely manner. And I want to, solar is not all roses and happiness. As I want a lot of my folks to be aware that in Excel territory, we are seeing what is a national crisis. 60 Minutes has had an incredible episode about it. And the fact is that our electrical grid in the United States is an absolute miracle at how it was built. The problem is it's not been maintained properly. With more people, more usage, more electric vehicles, and now the implementation of artificial intelligence and the demand that that's going to require for electricity, we're already seeing the impact on our local grids. Wherever you see red, that is Excel territory, but basically does not have capacity for solar because of the substations. We will address this one-to-one with anybody that's interested in this moving forward. For those that are here at the library, for those that are at home, do not let this deter you from taking the next step at looking at solar. But working with a reputable company is going to help you understand what your risks are by pursuing solar. We'll be able to help identify those homeowners that are in red zones. Is this worth pursuing, or do we need to wait for Excel to make these significant upgrades? And they are in the process of doing that. As soon as 6 months to 3 years, much of this red should go back to green is the idea. Let's go back to the types of solar roof of solar. You have a roof. The age of your roof is important. If your age of your roof is older than 15 years, it is in your best interest to definitely have an inspection. Here in Minnesota, with the storms that we have, there's a high probability. Most homes' roofs don't last more than 20 years because of hail damage. The last thing you want to do is put a 4-decade project on a roof that needs to be replaced in the next few years. So age of roof is important. Type of roof. Asphalt's wonderful. Standing seam's fantastic. The only concern a homeowner should have is if they own cedar shake or a slate, these new composites. So here's some images of just some panels, but you'll notice they're all black. Just within the last, just 2 years ago, you would have to pay a premium for an all black panel. Now all manufacturers are offering a black panel as standard, eliminating the grid look. So peeling wise, some people will never like how solar looks, but at some point your bill is going to dictate what solar looks like. It gets to a point. Some more imaging, all black is standard nowadays. Here's a profile from the side. They're elevated just a few inches above the roof on a racking system. Racking is typically a 25-year warranty. And then the other option is ground mounts. Ground mount, if you have property, you may be interested in doing a ground mount. The reasons why you do a ground mount is that your roof isn't capable of rooftop, and that would be any roof that's really steep, like a 12-12 or steeper. A roof that has that composite material we talked about with the slate, or that being of the cedar shake, or it's based off of the homeowner's preference. But you need to have property to be able to do so, because there are ordinances that we need to follow that dictate if a ground array is even viable. And that your local provider will be able to help you with that solution. Ground mounts are elevated 3 feet off the ground. We use American-made framing. They're usually 2 panels tall. They're about 15 feet high. Most arrays are anywhere from 30 to 40 feet wide and 20 feet deep. Most ordinances require the ground array to be mounted to the side of the house or behind the house to the street address. And again, your provider will help you identify where those locations are. The caveat, or what I want to address with the ground mounts, is permitting will require, if your property has a septic tank, that will be reviewed as part of the permitting process. Completely separate than solar, but that's what cities are now currently doing with ground mounts. Picture of what it looks from behind, picture from the sides. Now, a lot of homeowners think solar is on your roof, which it is obviously, but with that solar is additional hardware. So there should be no surprises once we get to see this, is that you have your meter. We need to determine, is your meter compatible with solar? If you have new construction, all meters are compatible for solar. Rule of thumb is if your house is older than 15 years, there's a good chance your meter will need to be upgraded for that solar. So with that new meter, you'll have a production meter. You'll have some bypasses, some switches that are to turn off for code. And then you'll have combiner box or communication systems that help communicate to you what your system's doing, what your system's producing. So the panel makes direct current, that's the workhorse. You have your inverter or microinverter that's converting that energy from DC to usable AC. That's the brains of the system. It is that microinverter, that inverter that's going to communicate to you through your phone's app or your computer, where you can see daily, hourly, what each of individual panels producing. So you don't have to wait to the end of the month to look at your bill to see what your system's done. Here is additional hardware if you're interested in battery backup. So again, not only looking at panels on your roof, there's additional hardware we want you to be aware of on this side of the house. What I want to address next is with solar. Solar is a solution for helping homeowners reduce their bill, reduce their carbon footprint. What solar is not, it's not a solution for power outages by itself. Solar does not provide power during a power outage. This is very important to know. A lot of homeowners over the years working with different providers have invested in solar thinking that they'll get power from their panels. You don't. It's a safety mechanism called island isolation. What that is, it protects the linesmen and lineswomen that are working on the grid to make that repair during that power outage. If your single array was still powered up, that single array could kill someone. So by the safety mechanism, your system is shut off. If you have concerns for power outages, you have the opportunity to invest in a battery backup. When you invest in a battery backup, now you're forming a microgrid during a power outage. What that means is with that battery, now we're disconnecting from the grid, but you maintain the power from your panels. So if your power's out during a sunny day, your house will be able to utilize the power from the panels. Whatever the panels aren't able to provide in that power, that's when the battery will kick in. Obviously, when the sun sets, you won't have that power anymore. You'll utilize that power from that battery. If the power outage is longer than overnight, the next day, the sun comes up, the power from the panels goes back to recharging that battery and utilizing that power to the house. We can either use a sub panel on your house and identify what loads you want to have power for. So you take your pump, your refrigerator, your Wi-Fi, anything you want, absolutely know you want to have access to during a power outage, we can put that on a sub panel, and that's what you'll have power for during that power outage with that battery backup. With the new technology from Enphase and Tesla and these other these manufacturers, they're getting more powerful where you can power your whole home if you want. If you want to live a life of luxury and run your AC during that power outage, you're going to need $30,000 to $40,000 in batteries to do so. So it's choices that you'll get to make during that power outage that dictates how long that battery will last. Okay. With that, there's additional hardware for the battery. Here's some examples of the Tesla Powerwall Plus, which is an inverter and a battery. Is that you can do one battery for essential loads for several hours of power outages. If you're concerned or live where there's power outages longer, you can invest in more batteries or a generator. And most of these batteries are compatible with generators, so it's seamless, turnkey. But the power goes out, you don't even know the difference with the technology that's now available with these batteries. So where panels are 30-year, 25, 30-year warranties, microinverters are 25-year warranties. A lot of these batteries are 10 to 12-year warranties. That doesn't mean they stop working at year 10. But again, they just measure how much power they're able to provide at year 10. Then I want to address the EV movement, electric vehicles. A lot of our clients have EVs or want to get EVs, or they got an EV and realize how much energy they use. Now they want to get solar because of it. Is that Connexus, a majority of utilities offer a program that allows you to charge your vehicle at a discounted rate at specific hours So a good chunk of your usage is now being offset at a discounted rate, yet all the power being produced by your solar panels is being compensated at an average retail rate. This is one program that really benefits the homeowner. What I have real quick is I represent Cedar Creek, been with Cedar Creek for quite a while now. Cedar Creek started 17 years ago. Here's just a little map of Minneapolis. We've done work throughout the state. We're a little over 1,000 projects in Minnesota, including all of our commercial work. Is that Cedar Creek would love to entertain your interest in solar from a consultative approach. Turnkey solutions, the amount of commercial work we've done is impressive. So at this point of the night, I don't want to, wear anyone out. I want anyone to fall asleep. So what I'd like to do is open it to questions, if that's appropriate at this time. So I have a question here. Yes. Conexus no longer purchases their energy from Great River. If there's a utility that's thirsty for solar, it is Conexus. So if you're in Conexus territory, there's no concerns about capacity. In the whole state, it is only Excel, but we want to identify your house immediately and its location on that capacity. Doesn't mean that it's not possible. It just means we're gonna move forward more conservatively with your best interest in mind. Okay. So the question was, is there capacity issues in Conexus? There is not. Excel is the only one that would have a concern for capacity for new solar. Next question. How many kilowatts does a heat pump utilize in Minnesota to heat your house? So the efficiencies of these new heat pumps compared to how old your current system is, it could be a neutral, it could be a net loss. It's going to, it varies on home, and it's too many variables, But what we find from conversions to heat pumps is that most of these people that are waiting to do a heat pump until their system kaputs, right? Until it dies. And some of those systems are 20 years old. Well, the efficiency of these new heat pumps compared to a system that's 20 years old means your utility usage is going to drop from what you had before. But I cannot answer. There's too many variables on how much it's going to use. I couldn't, it could be 500 to 4,000. And I would like to get you a better answer, but what we'd be able to do is help you with your specific house.
We have an older, we've had,
Mm-hmm. 1,000 kilowatts or 1,000, okay. Okay. So we have a homeowner that has geothermal. They've had it for about 10 years and they're using about 1,000 kilowatts a month. But that's that particular house. It's just going to variable. Sure. Okay. Okay. Yep. Fantastic. Incredible question. We are in Minnesota. Yes. The question is storm damage. What happens when there's hail? And we can speak from Cedar Creek's perspective is with the 3 million panels we've installed over the 17 years, we've only had a couple dozen panels actually damaged by hail. It's minimal for the most part for a residential. We need to understand is most of these storms are coming from the west, moving east, and they're glancing at a side angle. It's incredibly rare to have damage to the panel itself. If you had damage to a panel, your homeowner's insurance would help assist in that replacement of that product. What is common is that hailstorm, it won't damage your array. It's going to damage the rest of your roof. And that's where your normal homeowners dwelling coverage should offset the cost or cover the cost of removing the panels, replacing your roof, and putting the panels back up. Removal and replacement is covered by homeowners insurance. Fantastic. Yes, in the back. I'm going to rephrase it. The question is how does a battery or can a battery be a benefit financially, or how does a battery impact your billing with your solar array? Okay. So here in Minnesota, compared to all these YouTube videos and articles that we read, in Minnesota, the only purpose of a battery is for power outages because of the law of net metering. Yes, your battery will run at night, every night, regardless if there's no power or not. For the maintenance of the health of that battery, your battery will be used anywhere from 10 to 30% based on what you want to set it at. So at night, yes, you'll run your house off that battery for a little bit for free. So you basically saved yourself 14 cents a kilowatts. Well, the next day, you're going to have to recharge that battery. So instead of getting the energy back to the grid and getting paid at 14 cents, it's going back into the battery at 14 cents. So it's not quite 1-to-1, but it's awfully close to 1-to-1, that the cost of a battery, it's not a financial play, that it is in California or other parts of the United States where the net metering laws have changed and they utilize what's called time of use. Time of use is a hot topic in my Excel territories. Time of use has been used in a pilot program the last couple of years in parts of Minneapolis, Eden Prairie, St. Paul. And time of use is basically utilized by all the utilities on the East and West Coast. It's a concept that controls how much energy you use by charging you a higher rate during peak hours. So in general, it's around the hours of 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. They double your rate. In parts of the United States, they triple your rate. Is the larger that rate difference is, that's when that battery is a huge financial play. Is that those hours 2 to 8, you want to make darn sure you're getting all your power from your panels. Whenever your panels aren't providing the batteries smart, these batteries know, they know the systems, is that they'll kick in and ensure that you're utilizing the power straight from the battery. So you're saving 50 cents a kilowatt. The next day during the off-peak hours, you're charging your battery at a discounted rate. So that is where the particular time of use rate matters, where the battery will actually be a financial play. So those are important parts of your final decision. Is yes, you're buying or investing in solar now. A battery, you're not worried about power outages, so you don't need a battery now. But with these time of use rates being implemented in the future, there could be a chance you may want a battery for a financial investment. And that's where you want to make sure your solar array is compatible for battery technology down the road. Okay. Does that help? Does that answer that question? So that's where in Minnesota, it's strictly a power outages solution, but there's a good chance that it'll change in the future. Okay. The hang up of the time of use rate in Minnesota currently is if you overproduce, now not all homes will overproduce. If you're only offsetting your a house with an EV, you may only offset your home's usage by 80%. You'll never overproduce. If you're never overproducing, you may want to go to time of use rate if your lifestyle matches those hours. The problem is if you utilize time of use rate currently and you overproduce, they don't give you average retail 14 cents. They only give you 3 cents. So that's where each home and working with the right solar provider will help you guide you through the right solution. Fantastic. What other, I'm going to go in the back corner. Yes, sir. So the question is referencing the return on investment. Is historically, we've always been, the old days was about a longer than 20-year payback. And then with incentives, it became around a 17-year payback. And that's where a majority of our homeowners have been thrilled to death, knowing that this array is going to last 30 to 40 years. But if you can get your payback in 17 years, you're going to be in this house for 30 years. It makes a lot of sense. What has changed, particularly in the last 18 months, is you have a lot going on in Europe. Supply chain has been fixed, and you have incredibly high interest rates. Majority of solar that has been bought in the United States by residential homeowners has been bought on a concept that solar is a bill swap. Solar was never meant to be a month-to-month bill swap, where a lot of companies sell you solar based on your electric bill's $200. Great. We can get rid of your electric bill and your new monthly fees only, loan payments only $190. Sounds great, right? The problem is what these banks were offering, these low interest rates, they were charging immense finance fees, where homeowners were paying 25 to 30% more than the actual cost of the array to buy a payment on a monthly investment, versus solar is not a monthly investment. Solar is, how much are you going to pay for electricity to keep the lights on for the next 20 years, knowing the rates are only going to go up because of our grid status, compared to how much will you invest in solar. At the end of 15 years, you will have made all your money back on solar, but you'll have something to show for it too when you resell your house, with a house that has no electric bill, or a house that has 80% less. So the ROI is the panels become more efficient. They're producing more energy, so you're getting more bang for your buck, and these additional incentives. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. ROIs is always the bottom price. The bottom price is your net investment. So the question was, the ROI is the 30% tax credit considered in the ROI, and investment wise, you always look at your net, and that it's what's considered. Yes. Good. Yes, sir. We're at currently with the market, you can't get much lower than cost of the products. In fact, many of the manufacturers, one of the biggest ones, just laid off 30% of their workforce. A lot of the others are going to stop production to artificially increase the price, because they can no longer. The market is, if there's a time to invest in solar, it is absolutely right now. The second the Feds start talking about dropping the interest rates is the second you're going to start seeing the prices go back up. Supply and demand is a big factor in all this too, like any industry. But when you ask about, the question was, what's the price per panel versus install? You purchase the solution, which is one piece. There is no differential. Labor is a set cost. What fluctuates is that going to be that panel cost. So the question is, down the road, are these panels interchangeable? And the answer is that on a house, you can have 30 different brands of panels. It's the microinverter that determines the compatibility. Is if the panel is compatible with the inverter and with the or microinverter. The microinverter dictates that. So a lot of these microinverters work, or a lot of these panels work with any microinverter. And that's where Cedar Creek's outshines the competition, is that we're custom designing your roof put to a particular combination of panel and microinverter for that specific roof. Different homes, different roofers require different panels. Inverters will get better production. There are some panels on the market will only work with one microinverter, And that's what you need to be concerned about down the road, is there's a really popular panel out there in the market that's being utilized by competitors that only works with one specific inverter. And if you go down the road and that panel fails, you're gonna have to find a different panel. And is that gonna be compatible? That's part of working with the proper provider. But most of these are interchangeable. So the question is if you lose one panel, how are they strong in string or in parallel? And that would reflect the use of an inverter. Inverter has been the technology forever, but now the latest and greatest is the use of a microinverter. So you're converting that power at the individual panel. So if a panel goes bad, only that one panel is affected. The rest of the array is non-factor. And that technology's gotten a little bit better with inverters.
So it looks like there's some questions in the chat.
Yep.
I don't know if you can click on that. He thought it would be better if you actually.
So Stephen, help me. Here's a chat. I got you. Oh boy. First question is, what is the average time to get hooked up to the grid? Depends on who you choose for your provider. If you have a reputable provider, it should be pretty seamless. We are at the mercy of the utility company. It depends on the time of the year. If your array is getting installed in July at peak season, if your provider, your solar provider that you're investing with is on the ball, it's usually 2 to 3 weeks. For those that have heard nightmares a month long, that's on the provider. It's not the utilities. Okay. The Cedar Creek reputable companies don't have issues like that. But that goes back to interconnection, is knowing that you're in a red zone and that we need to address certain issues and not try to understanding that. Again, that's working with the right company. Next question is, when you have your EV plugged in, does it still keep drawing electricity after it's completely charged? No, that's these new EV chargers with the vehicle itself. Once it's charged, it's shutting off. Then I want to elaborate on that. You're producing panel energy from your panels. Is that panel energy going directly to your car? No, it's not. You're still charging from the grid. You're just offsetting the usage. Now, if you invest in a battery, yes, you can take the power from the panel, put it in your battery, and then you can charge your car from that battery. But what we need to recognize is your car battery is anywhere from 8 to 10 of your home batteries. So Tesla makes a power wall. That's what you're going to use for your house. That one power wall, well, that vehicle can have 10 power walls in it. So if you want to charge your vehicle, you need 10 batteries, which is not, that wouldn't make financial sense. What makes sense is charging your vehicle at off peak. Opinion on small portable solar setup for powering portable appliances. Yeah, great. If you don't need electricity, you can power your cell phones. It's a wonderful concept. Yes, for the battery conditioning and cooling. If the EV is still plugged in and the battery needs to use energy to cool off to keep warm, it will use some. Okay, thank you. These are answered. Okay. These look like. Okay, great.
I have one more question.
Sure, Kate.
What happens to the solar panels when they?
End of life, right?
Yep.
End of life. So we're starting to see that out in California, but they've been doing solar long before Minnesota has. And what we're getting every year, just like any technology, it's getting better and better. Basically, 90-something% of these panels are recyclable. And we're already seeing programs in Minnesota where they're taking these panels and recycling them. But for those that are investing now, this is an issue 30 years from now. By 30 years from now, there's going to be some concept that we never even thought about that should only be better. There's going to be an incredible business down the road for it, for sure. Good. Yes. The question is what maintenance is involved with solar panels? Referencing dust accumulation. So there's parts of the United States that in articles you'll read, but you're supposed to maintain these panels. The climate we live in, it rains often enough. It's a vertical, it's a slanted solution, slanted project that it rains often enough for pollen in the spring to clear it off. You can pay someone to clear your panels and they'll charge you a couple $100. There's no chance anyway you'll ever see that savings in that cost because of the rain. Now, if we're in Arizona and farm country, that's a different story. So we have rain to wash off the panel from pollen and dust. And then that goes back to the snow. The sooner a homeowner recognizes there's very little power in the winter from the sun, the sooner you'll recognize you don't need to worry about any snow on your panels. Any effort to remove snow is saving you pennies. The overall big picture is 85%, around 85% plus your energy for the whole year is produced during those summer months. Okay, wonderful. Any other questions? Yes, sir. A 1,000 kilowatt system. Well, the minimum's gonna be 5, okay, for most companies. A 5K system. So the minimum is gonna be around 15 grand. Okay, minimum. I would let you know the average house is gonna be around 40,000. Don't let that deter you from looking at solar. Every home's different. I gotta look at averages. This week I have projects over 200,000. I got projects that are 20,000. It depends on what your goals are. Some people only want to offset their bills 50%. It's what that particular homeowner's goal is and what the roof has to offer. And that was gross cost, by the way. The question is that somebody has heard or read that you need to have electric bill around $100 to make it worth the investment. And I would say it's up to the individual to decide what's best for their home and their investment. I have plenty of people that have $60 bills that invested in solar and they're thrilled to death. It's either a combination of strictly financial or some of it is green motivated. So it really is based on your particular goals. I would not allow anything you've read on averages on any article, throw it out the window. It doesn't mean anything here in Minnesota. Sure. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean that's where the question is what size of a raise I think the minimum investment worth it. And that's where it's going to come down to what providers, how low will a provider be willing to go? Some companies, we basically have close to a 20 panel minimum with the amount of work we have. Yes. So the question is, are there any concerns with the extra weight? And the answer is no. No. When you have this weight dispersed across the roof with these homes that are the way they are built, it's that it's less than 4 pounds a square foot, which is nothing. So weight, we only worry about weight on super old pole barns with staggered trusses, but no, residential solar is a non-factor for the most part. And that's where part of the interconnection is going through an engineering process to make sure that that structure can hold that additional weight. But basically non-factor. Great. So the question is, or it's a concern about how panels are installed on your roof. And with the commercial work we do, business owners that own buildings, it's like faith, family, and their roof because they're so expensive. When it comes to homeowners, It goes down to who's going to be your installer. And companies like Cedar Creek, we have warranties, but with the 17 years of business, we've never had one roof leak based off our install. It's how we approach it with self-flashing. Other companies will use caulk and screws into the decking, where we're going with a lag screw into a truss, alternating every 4 feet. So based on your company will dictate how many penetrations they're going to be. And that would be one strength Cedar Creek has definitely learned over all the years of business, is minimal penetrations is in everybody's best interest. Correct. So the question is, if there's hail damage to your roof, what's that process? And that is you would go to your initial solar provider. They would come out, remove the whole system, the panels and the racking. And you time it with the roofer. So that day they're putting the roof back on. If you work with the good company, they're putting your panels right back on. I've got all kinds of stories about that. Okay. It's who you choose is the biggest decision you're going to make when it comes to solar. So the question is not only about roof mounted solar, but the question is more like ground mounts, or he's seen homes where they had pedestals with panels mounted that rotate. Do you know who the first president was that put solar on the White House? You know, who was the first one to take them off? Right? Back in the day, the technology was so old and new at the same time. Those panels not only had to follow the sun from sunrise to sunset, they also had to follow at the angle of the sun through the time of the year. Nowadays with technology, a fixed array is going to get you all the power you need. So not with the technology today.
All
Right.
So we are rounding the hour mark here, and I want to thank Kyle for the presentation. And I think that if you have any additional questions that weren't addressed, those of you in the audience could come up to Kyle and ask. Those of you online, he left his email on the screen, and I would say feel free to email him.
Yeah, I mean, solar is intimidating. It's a lot of money. It's a super long-term investment. And I hope what we find with the Cedar Creek approach or myself is that we're here to help. Solar has received a terrible reputation in Minnesota based on terrible companies. And that's not what solar is. Solar is absolutely viable. Keith Ellison, Attorney General, has a mention of that. It's you got to work with the right company. So it's the research on the right company, and that's where we would love to help you out. There was a really good question about community gardens versus owning your own. It's proven now that the community garden's been around for a while. If you have the finances, it is always in your best interest to own solar. You're the beneficiary of it, of your own investment. So with that being said, I appreciate everyone. And if you have additional questions, I'm available to email. And either for those who are here tonight, I'll stick around as long as it takes. Thank you.